Season starts here on May 2nd, and most of us fishermen here are getting ready for that. And I want to show you how to tie your guys' own leaders. First off, we're going to start off with a piece of 150-pound monofilament line, about 54 inches long. A lot of the guys around here prefer to use steel leaders, and I just don't think they're necessary unless the dogfish are really thick. And especially at the beginning of the season, I think this gives a smoother presentation. I know it's dark down there, but I still am a firm believer in the less crap you have, the better chance you have of catching a fish. You want it to look as natural as possible, and I just think that steel leader impedes that a little bit. So what you're going to do is, like I said, you got a piece of 150-pound monofilament, about 54 inches long, okay? And we're going to start off with an A-dot nickel-plated octopus hook, okay? So, to start with, come down through the top of the eye, okay? You're going to pull your tag in here about, I'd say that's about 15, 16 inches. Doesn't have to be real exact, but, you know, about 15, 16 inches is right in the area you want to be, okay? So, here you've come down along the shank. We're going to start with a simple egg knot, okay? So, you pinch your tag end and the shank of the hook just like that, okay? And I hope that you guys can see this at home. I'm doing the best that I can. It's really hard to tie knots on, you know, on TV. So what you do is you take your tag in. See this? And I'm pinching the line against the shank of the hook, okay? Fold that back. Now you're pinching a loop with your fingers, okay? Then you take your tag end and you go around. I'd say about 4 or 5 times is about as much as you want with this thick line, okay? So then, now you've grabbed 4 or 5 times. You take your other hand and you pinch your wraps, okay? Now you've created a loop that you were holding this whole time against the shank of the hook. Now you take your tag end and you come up through your loop that you've created, okay? Now, you start to pull this a little bit. Pull your main line, pull your tag line. Okay, see your knot has started to cinch down right here. Now this is a little trick that I like to do just because I'm always worried about losing a fish. I take a little bit of super glue, you know, any brand will work, and you just want to put a little drop of super glue right there at the bottom where your tag end goes through the loop. You don't need a ton, a little dab will do it. You just a little bit, okay? So now that you've added your super glue, now you cinch down the knot, okay? And then what that does is it forces the glue up in between your wraps and your loop there, and that really tends to hold it really well. And that's what's considered a simple egg loop knot. Those would be used for salmon fishing, holding roe on, anytime, you know, sturgeon fishing, anytime you want to hold a bait on the hook. If it wasn't glued like I just did, you can slide this whole knot down and it creates an extra loop here that you can wrap around your bait, okay? So, now we're going to add a second hook. Another A-dot nickel-plated octopus hook. Same thing as last time. Down through the top of the upturned eye. Okay? Now you want to try, when you tie your knots, you want to point both your hooks in the same direction, because if you tie this hook like this and that hook like that, it doesn't seem to work, and you want to be able to thread these through your bait as best you can. So now what you want to do is you want to leave yourself about 2 to 3 inches in between your two hooks, between the eye and the bottom of the curve on the shank there, okay? And we're going to do the same thing. You got your tag end coming out here. You're going to pinch the bottom. You're going to take your tag end and you're going to wrap. About 4 to 5 times is plenty, okay? So now you're doing the same thing. You're holding it. I know it's hard to see, but I've been doing this a long time, so it's easier for me. So you're pinching your loop. You've got your tag end hanging down here. You've wrapped 4 or 5 times. Now you're going to take your right hand and you're going to grab onto your loops, okay? Or your wraps. Now you've got your loop exposed right there. Same thing, take your tag end, go up through the loop, okay? Now, ever so gently, you start to pull. Now you're holding your tag end here, okay? Now you've got your knot almost tightened down. Same thing, you're going to take a little drop of super glue, not much, because if you put too much on there, you end up with a bunch of white crusty shit on there, and I just like to look good at all times, and with a bunch of white crusty shit on there, it doesn't look very professional. So then, now that you've done that, you're holding your tag in, and you cinch it down ever so gently, okay? Now, this is basically the same thing as a salmon leader, but on a much larger scale, much heavier scale, okay? So now you got your tag in there, you got your 2 knots, you got about, I'd say about 3.5 inches in between your 2 hooks. You're fishing a much larger bait here, so you want this space to be a lot longer than it would be if you were fishing just for mooching for salmon, okay? You're going to take your pair, I got a pair of flush cut nippers here. You take that and you're going to snip your tag end off right there. Okay, now you won't want to cut your tag end off too close because you want the knot to have the ability to tighten and stretch a little bit without coming loose, okay? So, that's the beginning part of your leader. Now, you're going to take, and what I prefer is to use a large hoochie skirt, large squid hoochie skirt. And a lot of guys will just deep six a herring down to the bottom, and they won't put one of these on. But my theory is that when you're going to deep six it all the way down to the bottom, if a little flounder comes and bites the ass off your herring, you've still got this hoochie down there flipping around as an attractant for a halibut, okay? So, this is a 7.5 inch hoochie right here. You can go all the way up to 10.5, 11.5. If you want to get real crazy, they sell 17 inch hoochies on the internet. I figure somewhere in the 7.5, 8.5, 9.5 range is plenty. You get the most bang for your buck because the larger you get, the price goes up exponentially, okay? So now these come with a sealed top on them. They don't come with a hole in them, okay? What you see a lot of guys do is they just take their scissors and they'll just cut the head off of this thing and then they'll slide it down over the leader. Well, what that does is it creates a big hole, and then your hoochie works itself down over the knot and onto your hook, and it will actually can cover up your top hook, which would, you know, you get a bite and one of your hooks is in here, you got a hell of a lot less chance of hooking a fish, okay? So, what I like to do is I'll pinch the hoochie flat, okay, like it was going to be swimming along. You got your eyes on the top of the head here, okay? So then I just take it and I'll take my scissors and I'll cut down about 1/4 of an inch maybe. Just one little slice. That's all you do, okay? Now, you take this guy, you come up through the bottom, take your leader line, you come up through the bottom of the hoochie and it pokes right out the top, okay? A little trick I've learned is a lot of guys will just grab them by the top and then they yank the hoochie down and all the little legs, they go up inside and they come out the top, they get ripped off, they get messed up. So what I've figured out is if you grab all the legs with one hand like this and then you just pull, look at that. Okay, now be careful not to hook yourself in the hand like I just did. But it just seats right up in there. And now you can see that the hoochie's not really sliding past that knot. You can pull on it a little bit and it's held pretty good. And you can see where the hook comes out right underneath the head here. And to me, that is basically hooked up perfect. And you've got your hook that it comes all the way down to exactly the bottom of the hoochie. You don't want to have your hook way down here. You still want to hide your hooks as best you can, okay? So now you've got your hoochie hooked onto your A-dot hooks, okay? Now what I do is I put a mark on the table over here. You guys can't see that, so when I'm tying a bunch of these I can do it really fast. Most halibut leaders are 18 inches long. All the steel leaders you're going to get are 18 inches long, and they're mostly made with 60 to 80 pound wire, okay? This is 150 pound, because some guys will tell you, oh, it's not good enough, that's not going to hold a halibut, and I call bullshit on that one. I fish for lingcod with 20-pound monofilament leaders, and lingcod teeth are way more aggressive than halibut teeth, and I've never lost a lingcod to chewing through the leader. So that's just my little piece on that. So but what I also like to do is I like to use a little bit longer of a leader than 18 inches because I like to get my bait away from the weight. Okay? Now, once to get it away from the weight a little bit, it smooths out your presentation. I don't, now they like the sound of the weight banging on the ground, but they're not going to bite the weight. You want them to bite the hoochie and your offering, the herring. So I tie my leaders 10 inches longer. They're 28-inch leaders. You don't want to have a 40-inch leader because there is a line there where it's too much. Because if you have this huge leader hanging off of your spreader bars or your three-way swivel or however you're fishing it, you got a lot more margin for error on the way down, because they tend to want to bind up and twist with your main line. And so you want to let it down really slow. That's another thing. Put your clicker on and let it down slow. Don't just flip the bail and deep six it, because it will get fucked up every time. So I'm going to look over here on my table because I got my mark all laid out just to kind of get an idea. So I laid my mark out and I pinched where the bottom of the loop is going to be. And this is roughly 28 inches. I mean, sometimes they're an inch shy, sometimes they're an inch long. It is what it is. Okay? So then you take this. You got your loop pinched just like this. Okay? You're going to take it. You're going to go over, So you've got a loop formed here. Then you're going to take your actual loop and you're going to feed that back through the top there, okay? Now, before you close your loop, same thing as last time, you got your loop mostly closed, you're going to add a little drop of super glue to the top of it, okay? Now that you got that done, you just cinch it down and the glue works itself all into the knot, and you just hold it there like that for just a second. It only takes a second for this glue to set. Bam, you got your leader. Then you take this, you got your flush cut nippers there, and you want to snip off about a ½ inch to the bottom. Be careful not to cut your main line. I've done that plenty of times, and you got to start all the way over. So what you're left with is a nice halibut leader with a loop on it. Now the reason I pre-tie these spreader bar, which has a coast lock snap swivel on the back, and for a while I used to sell these with just the line, nothing tied on this end, but because I want to make sure that guys are catching fish with my gear, I decided to change the loop, tie the loop, and put the glue on it, because not everybody is good at tying this big line, and it tends to want to kind of unfold a little bit because of the low memory in the line, because it's so thick. It doesn't want to bind together like other fishing knots, other fishing line would, you know, smaller lines. So you got this guy, you got this guy, and you're ready to go halibut fishing. So, just Bigfishin Custom Tackle here, coming at you with another tip. I want everybody to keep their rods in the water, and I'll see you out on the water May 2nd. It's time to kick some halibut ass.